Hey everyone, it's Carter King. If you're an educator, a leader, or just a parent who wants to teach kids about space, check out my newest book, Carter's Journey Through Space. It's available now on Amazon, Target, and bookstores everywhere. Come explore the universe with me.
Welcome to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle King, and the goal of this podcast is simple: to help you create environments where people thrive. Through real conversations, practical strategies, and powerful stories, we equip leaders, educators, and change makers just like yourself to build cultures rooted in purpose, performance, and authenticity. Because culture isn't something you talk about, it's something you live. This is the Contagious Culture Podcast. Let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle King, and the goal of this podcast is to help you create an ecosystem and environments where people thrive. Look, culture isn't vibes, and it's definitely not posters in the hallway. And today we're going to be talking about what culture really is, what experience, what people really experience when leadership decisions, systems, incentives, and communication collide with real human beings. And I want to welcome you back. If this is your first time, this is the show for leaders who want to really be able to create a repeatable, resilient, and real culture. And today I am joined by, somebody amazing, doing some phenomenal cutting edge things in the space of not just culture, but nonprofit. Kate Viana, founder of Viana Communications and the creator of Nonprofit Culture Fest. Kate has spent more than a decade inside the nonprofit sector as a consultant, board member, staffer, and creative partner. And you know one thing, she kept seeing the same story: broken communication systems, unclear processes, cultural toxicity, and teams burning out while the mission keeps demanding more and more and more. So she built a solution, y'all. 4 brands under one umbrella that strengthens nonprofits from the inside out. And I'm super, super excited to talk with her today. And if you ever thought we don't have a culture problem, we have a chaos problem, this episode is for you. Kate, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Hi, Kyle. Well, I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And we're going to get started right here at this question. Where are you calling from? And what's something that has brought you joy this week?
I am calling you from just outside Atlanta. We live on the northeast side in the suburbs. And something that has brought me joy this week is watching my daughter get super hyped for Christmas.
No, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's interesting because we have these calls all the time and these conversations with leaders literally all over the world now, as far as Spain. So super excited. And one of the questions that I like to ask is that when people ask you what you do, what's your one sentence, I guess, no jargon answer, which is super hard to sum all of what you do up in one sentence?
It depends on who's asking. I usually say I help nonprofits with communication. And if they ask for details, I can give them a little bit more. But yeah, culture and communication is what we do. What I do.
What's the moment for you that you realize, okay, nonprofit organizations don't just need better messaging, they need infrastructure as well?
That would be the moment that I got fired for the last time back in 2021. Yeah. So I'm a extremely outspoken person. I can't keep it to myself when something is wrong. So that has not ever really done me many favors, except for the last couple years. The last time I got fired was when it really hit me, and that was because the systems in place were non-existent. The culture was terrible. The people in all different departments were pulling in different directions. And when I spoke up about it, that was not appreciated. And I realized, you know what? I love this organization, but I cannot fix it. I'm just one person. And this is not the first time I've encountered this. So it's time for me to step out of just being a director of marketing and communications and step into trying to fix this from, kind of take a bird's eye view of the sector and, make a much broader impact.
I really appreciate you mentioning that and sharing your story. And look, we have so many parallels because I have seen in my career so much bad culture and not a lot of good culture. Unfortunately, Kate, how would you define a visual of what bad culture looks like versus good culture within an organization?
Oh, that's a good question. I think you can really feel it. I don't know if I could tell you what it looks like because you can really feel it, and that sounds kind of touchy-feely to some people because that people that want to define culture in a more concrete way. But good culture is where there is psychological safety, where people are, they feel free to speak up and not just speak up in a team meeting, but they feel empowered to ask questions of leadership. They feel entitled, not entitled in a bad way, but entitled in a, kind of a teamwork way to question decision making, and where they feel entitled to understand how things are done in the organization. People who don't have that freedom, they don't live in a good culture. And bad culture is kind of the opposite, where there's vagueness, there's ambiguity, there's favoritism, there's gossip, there's burnout, and there's really no effort to fix those issues.
You've worked a lot with nonprofit organizations. Mm-hmm. What's a normal nonprofit, I guess, thing, quote unquote, you saw that you now realize was a red flag?
Oh man, I have to pick just one. I think probably leadership that didn't communicate its decision-making processes. I think there was a lot of executive directors who would decide something or be told to do something by the board, and then they would just communicate it to the staff, and the staff was expected to execute. And that's terrible leadership, and it communicates to staff really that, you're just workhorses. We don't care about your opinion. We don't care that you're the ones on the front lines doing the work. We just care that you are the workhorses that are going to execute this decision, that you don't understand how the decision was made.
That's good. I never even thought about it from that perspective. And I think what's important is that allows you to create community and empathy and a sense of belonging in this ecosystem where we're driving these decisions together as well. And one thing that is super cool about your background is that you are a community builder, you're a community creator. And with the Nonprofit Culture Fest, you are creating something that is putting a lot of these leaders in the room and providing them a space where they can grow. And they can't just grow themselves as leaders, but they can also grow their institutions as well as the communities in which that they serve. What problem were you trying to solve when you created Nonprofit Culture Fest?
I was really just trying to, broadly, I've written this in several places. I was trying to spark a culture revolution, and that's kind of a big goal to have, I recognize. But to me, we are decades overdue in the nonprofit sector for these kind of conversations, for this kind of focused attention on culture. In my opinion, and what I believe, is kind of the foundation behind non-toxic nonprofits, is that culture is the most reliable predictor of a nonprofit success. You cannot have a crappy culture and have a successful nonprofit. You can't have a sustainable nonprofit or a nonprofit that's viable long-term, because a bad culture will chip away at all of that over time. It will undermine everything about the organization. So what I am hoping to do, as I said, is to focus the sector's attention on these conversations and on the desperate need that we have to fix the culture problem, to fix the systems problem that we have, so that we can do good work, so that we can do better work, so that we can, look around, look at the political climate in 2025. Nonprofits are desperately needed now more than ever. The stakes are so high. We cannot afford to ignore these conversations any longer. We've got to address it.
When you think of your statement of culture as the most reliable predictor to a nonprofit success, how do you actually measure positive culture or improved organizational culture? Like, what are the metrics? What are the measures that we use?
I would say you use things like length of tenure. People who stick around, it's probably because the culture is pretty good. Transparent decision-making processes. The degree to which communication flows both ways, both up and down, and, laterally between departments, things like that.
I've heard a lot in my own career that leaders say, we have a culture problem. Mm-hmm. What are some of the most I guess, structural misalignments underneath that specific statement?
I think that's a good question. Some of the structural misalignments are probably what I just mentioned. The absence of clear communication flow, that does a lot to throw culture off. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
No, it's okay.
I think it does really all come down to communication. So if communication is not flowing freely between departments, between leadership and staff, then you really cannot have a solid culture.
Now, to even expand on that point, who shapes culture in the nonprofit space? Like besides the CEO, like, and I want you to, is it the board? Is it the funders? Is it timelines? Is it incentives? Is it the demands? And I asked that question because even in the work that I've done with nonprofit organizations, the executive director can have all of these, innovative ideas and structures and various things that they want to implement, but the boards impact how that flows within the organization as well. And even in my experience in education, the board can want something, but if there's not buy-in and unity across the board in regards to the leaders on the ground, or even the teachers or the employees or the parents, and we're not all in uniform in regards to where we're trying to go, then it creates challenges. So what do you think? Who actually shapes culture within that nonprofit setting?
I think that's a really complex question. And in my consulting, I focus a lot on telling leaders, executive directors specifically, that they are the cultural stewards of their nonprofits, because, and that's not easy to hear, right? Because in the nonprofit world, executive directors wear all of the hats. They have to be the fundraiser in chief. They have to be the referee, a lot of the time. They're the chief decision maker. They have all these hats that they have to wear. But also, it's kind of unavoidably true that what executive directors tolerate, what they, enforce, what they model is what the culture is going to look like, basically. So, if you have a leader that is always saying, "Oh, be kind to one," because I'm using an example from my career. I had an executive director that was constantly saying, "Be kind, be kind, be kind," and it rang quite hollow because he was always yelling. He was always, yelling at staff, or, very publicly calling out people in, organization-wide email chains and things like that. And so, by his words, he said one thing, but by his actions, he said another. And that was what stuck with people. So that was what the culture became. It became paranoid and scared and just unpleasant.
That's good. That's good, Kate. And one of the things that I noted and wrote down in my notes prior to this conversation is that you've written a lot about how people leave bad bosses, and how that can be more of an accountability escape hatch. I guess that leads me to my question of, what if I am a leader and I see ineffective or toxic culture from managers or from specific team members? How do I go about handling that once I initially see it or suspect it?
Well, I think you first have to turn the lens on yourself, right? I mean, if you're an executive director with an SVP or a middle manager that's exhibiting these toxic traits, then you have to say, what is it about my leadership behavior that's letting them think that's okay? It all stops with the leader. At least that's what I think. I mean, you can be doing, of course, there's also true that you can be doing everything that you can, and someone is just not a good fit. They're not a good leader. And at that point, of course, you can invest in training and whatnot. But I do think it's important to turn the lens on yourself first.
That's good. What is the time that you had to turn the lens on you, and what did that lens reveal, and how did you go from that?
I would be very honest with you and say that I am not a great manager. I've worked solo pretty much my entire career, never really had any direct reports. But I think probably one time that I had to turn the lens on myself was during a significant communications project at a particular nonprofit I worked at, where things weren't getting done. We were trying to get the project done, and I was in charge of a team of just 2 other people, and they spent a lot of their time waiting on me. And I wanted them to be more proactive. And they were saying, well, we're waiting on you to tell us what to do. And that was a turning point for me in my career, because I thought, you know what, I absolutely suck at delegating. I am not good at that. And so, like, I had to turn that lens on me and say, you know what, either I need to get better at this or I need to stop being a manager.
Mm. When you think about these communication systems, though, what are some of the must-have communication systems for a healthy nonprofit organization?
I think it depends on the size of the nonprofit, of course, how feasible this is. But one thing that I focus on with clients is codifying communication norms within your team, or whatever the smallest unit is that you have. And that includes things like, when do we use Slack? What does it mean when we use an emoji, for example? What does it mean to put a period at the end of the sentence? Another thing that I focus on quite a lot in training is intergenerational communication, and that's coming up again and again, and that's becoming an ever more prominent part of culture. But being aware of the differences in communication between the different generations and having some guidelines in place so that you don't have, Gen Z sending, like a peace sign to a boomer colleague and having things get lost in translation, for example.
Now, how do you do that, though, without it turning into a 40-page document? Like, how do you define, like, this is how we do things here across teams?
So that is a question that I get asked an awful lot. And the answer is that it's not something that you etch in stone once and you never look at it again. You don't put it in the employee handbook. You put it somewhere that it can live, like a Google Drive document. And you're not looking for the right answer, because there is no right answer, right? There are as many different ways to communicate as there are, people in the world. And what the document is intended to do is help your team learn to talk to each other about things they disagree on and learn how to reach consensus, not necessarily full agreement.
That's good. Consensus over agreement. In your work, I'm sure you've had a lot of communication breakdowns, but then also communication successes. Mm-hmm. What should leaders stop saying immediately?
What should they stop saying immediately? I think they should probably start saying, you guys need to figure this out. Really? Because yes, I hear that a lot, and it always bothers me because it puts distance between leadership and staff. And that's not, yes, there is some kind of professional distance, right, between leadership and staff, but it's all one team. It's all one organization. And I cannot be successful in the work that I do if the leader doesn't look at them like that, if they don't start seeing themselves as both part of the problem, because they can't be divorced from it, and also a necessary part of arriving at a solution or solutions.
Let me ask you this, and kind of expanding on that point a little bit more. I've always heard the terms of we're family and this whole idea of open door policy. Yeah. Can you talk more about that? Because I don't believe either one of those are accurate. This whole idea of we're family, or this whole idea of there's an open door policy, because sometimes that door needs to be shut. Talk to me about your perspectives and how we can stop saying those types of things as well.
I think that language is toxic. And, it's also true, just, from a trauma-informed perspective, that someone saying we're a family may trigger some unpleasant things for certain people. It's not positive for everyone necessarily. So I think that we need to scrap that, and we need to adopt something more like, we are a team. We are aligned on this mission. We are all members of an organization that support, whatever the mission is, unhoused people or animal welfare, or whatever it happens to be. No one's here in this sector to get rich, right? Yeah. So whatever we're here for, we're aligned on that. So.
Kate, what are you most excited about in this season? Like, you're doing, like, even the information that you're giving right now is just absolutely phenomenal. I feel like 2.5 pages of notes already. What are you most excited about? And I guess what keeps you motivated even in the landscape of nonprofits right now?
I think just the possibility. I'm sure you have too, we all have seen nonprofits do incredible things with very little to work with, very few resources, and I keep coming back to the idea that look how much we've done, even though we are, as a sector, we are continually hamstrung by toxic culture. Mm-hmm. And think how much more we could do together, how many more stakeholders we could serve if we solved this problem, or addressed, I shouldn't say solved, if we addressed this issue and we were intentional about creating healthy, nurturing cultures.
Kate, where do we begin? Like, if I'm that organizational leader and I come to you and I'm said, Kate, I'm ready. I want to make this change. I'm willing to follow you and just be able to just shift our culture. Where do I start?
You start by listening. I mean, that's what I do when I engage with a new client. I do a lot of listening because listening tells you more than you will ever find out by talking. I would never call myself an expert. What I really am is someone who has lived this, and I know what the patterns are. Yeah. I know what to look for. I know what to listen for. And I would tell a leader that said that, let me listen to you. Let me listen to you. Let me listen to your team. If you're going to do it yourself, you start by listening to your team. Listen with an open mind, listen in a psychologically safe space, listen with humility and, with an eye toward really making things better, not an eye toward making people feel better for the day, because anyone can have a gripe session, right? Sure. And that does feel good. I would never say not to have a gripe session, because those can be cathartic. But when you really want to start fixing your culture, you really want to start a revolution inside your own organization, it starts with listening, and it starts with a willingness to start from the bottom, basically, and rebuilding the systems that need to be built.
Let me say I came to you and I said, look, Kate, I need you to do a mini audit. Like, I have Slack, I have email, I have text, I have meetings, I have chaos. Oh my God, I'm stressed. What's your quick prescription in 3 steps?
Oh my gosh, just 3 steps. My first question would be like, my goodness, why do you have so many? Because there's really no need for nonprofits to have all those different communication media. I have worked with organizations that they've got 7 WhatsApp channels, and they've got Slack channels, and a couple of people over here use Teams, and some people use GChat, and you really need to be intentional about the media that you use, the channels that you use to communicate. Yeah. So a quick audit that I would do, I would say, first of all, why do you have so many? Second of all, what are you actually trying to communicate here? Let's talk about what's appropriate for your organization. And third of all, let me look at your messaging, and that'll tell me a lot. What are people saying in these different channels?
That's good. I want to, we're going to change it up really quickly. We're going to do a rapid fire. And I find that this is a lot of fun with our guests that come on. So I'm going to give a statement, and you're going to just finish the statement. Okay. So I have a few things that I wrote down and some few things on my head based upon the conversation that we've had today. But we'll start with an easy one. So culture is most often broken by A, unclear decisions, or B, unclear expectations. Hey, it's Kyle. Sorry to interrupt your programming, but I got a quick culture check for you. How's your team's energy right now? I mean, literally, right now. Are people feeling inspired? Or are they just showing up? See, here's the truth. Culture doesn't change because we talk about it. It changes because we live it actively every single day. And that's what I help organizations do. Build contagious cultures that people actually want to be a part of. Through keynote talks, interactive trainings, and hands-on consulting, I help leaders transform the way their teams connect, perform, and grow. So if your culture needs a little bit of spark, let's light it up together. Visit theculturelab.org, again, theculturelab.org, or connect with me directly on LinkedIn at Kyle S. King to learn more about how we can work together. Because remember, your culture is contagious. Make it worth catching. Now let's get back to the program.
B.
Really? Talk more about that. I'm gonna just pause there. Like I want to hear that.
It's supposed to be rapid fire.
I know.
I think unclear expectations are responsible for it more often than unclear decisions, because think about it. I'm not going to articulate this very well, I can tell. If your expectations are, as a staff member, are not clear, then you're not going to do a very good job, because you can't do a good job because you don't know what the expectations are. If you're not clear as a manager what you expect from your staff member, then any job will do.
That's perspective. Okay. All right. Let's get back to it.
Okay.
That was a quick sidestep. All right. Most overrated nonprofit phase.
Phase.
Mm-hmm.
And can you elaborate a little bit? What do you mean?
In regards to the communication channels.
Oh. Sorry, I don't think I'm clear on what you're asking.
Let me restate it. What did I mean when I wrote this one? We'll skip this one. We'll come back to it.
Okay.
One nonprofit badge of honor you want to retire forever.
Oh, I think we can all agree, the martyr badge.
Okay. All right. We'll keep going. This or that. All staff meetings versus asynchronous updates.
Asynchronous updates.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Value posters, decision logs.
Decision logs.
One boundary every nonprofit leader should set around communication.
Honesty. It all has to be honest.
That's a good one. A tool you love for staying organized.
Oh, I'm not a good person to ask that because I still write my to-do list with pen and paper.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Here's the next one. I like this one too. Best small change, big impact culture practice.
Let me think. Asking for clarification.
I want to come back to that one. Okay. A sign a board is helping culture, not harming it.
Helping culture, not harming it. I think if they are, one of the issues that I see with boards is that they're not always clear on what their responsibilities actually are. Like, how much are they responsible for fundraising? When are they supposed to show up? This is especially true for small and mid-sized organizations. You know, what is their actual role? I think that is unclear for a lot of board members. So I think that board members that show up consistently and their participation is predictable by staff, then that means that board members understand their roles, and that helps set a standard for the rest of the organization. Understanding your role and knowing when to show up, how to participate, what it means to be there meaningfully, that kind of thing.
That's good. Last question on my end. If your staff doesn't trust you, stop doing this and start doing that.
Oh gosh, let's see. If your staff doesn't trust you, stop keeping your door closed. No, I'm just kidding. Open door policy. If your staff doesn't trust you, stop talking so much and start listening.
I love that one. And circling back to the question that I wrote earlier, full transparency, I missed the letter. Completely missed the letter. Most overrated nonprofit phrase, not phase.
Oh, okay. Gosh, that's hard. Let me think. Most not overrated nonprofit phrase. I wear a lot of hats. I hate that. And I said it for years until I realized how toxic it actually was.
Why is that toxic? Why do you believe that?
If you're saying you wear a lot of hats, what you're really saying is that my organization has no boundaries. You know, like, and it's not. It's difficult, right? Because a lot of small organizations do operate on a shoestring, and there's sometimes nothing you can do about that, especially while organizations are just getting going or they're trying to grow. But even from the beginning, even when it's just the executive director and one person, you know, and they're working out of somebody's basement, those boundaries have to be in place, because that's where the culture starts. That's where you start to put in guidelines around what people are expected to do, how your values show up in everyday work, you know, how what your role actually is. Like, that needs to be very clear in order for culture to be healthy.
Now, let me ask you this, Kate. How do you work with organizations? Let's say I'm an organizational leader that is struggling, that's chaotic within my organization, and I want to partner with you. What would that partnership look like? And what would the result look like usually?
So it looks different for every organization. I don't really have I have a framework that I work with, of course, but I don't just go into organizations and immediately apply the same framework over and over. I take a lot of time to listen and observe because you can pick up on so much that organizations aren't even aware of a lot of the time. They don't even recognize that certain dynamics are present in their organization until someone comes in from the outside and says, "Hey, look over there." So that's what I do. 2 weeks minimum of observing because I want to really understand what's going on, why it's happening, what are the motives behind the people who are, perpetuating certain behaviors or whatever. And then we start talking. And those conversations are a lot of me asking questions. And I will tell you what's really encouraging, what keeps me coming back to this work is that 9 times out of 10, people find the answers for themselves. When I give them the data, when I tell them what I've observed and I start asking them questions, why do you think this is, what do you think this is coming from? They can usually figure it out. They can say, oh, right. Yeah, I see. And from that point, when you have the buy-in of leadership, it's pretty easy to, I shouldn't say easy, but it's easier to move forward with the staff and say, okay, this is, we have problem A, so we're going to implement exercise B in order to start practicing how to eliminate, whatever it is that's going on.
Exactly.
So
let's say that same leader is listening in right now and knows their culture is exhausting in a sense. What are 2 actions that they should take this week or starting today to start rebuilding that trust or start rebuilding that clarity?
I think, it definitely starts with a look at yourself. It's hard to be completely self-aware. So, I would start, if speaking to that director, I would say, start talking to your own direct reports, get some approach them with humility and with an open mind and start learning about how you come across to your team, because you may be doing things you don't even know of that you can fix relatively easily. And then other than that, I think start modeling the behaviors that you want to see, because again, it all trickles down.
Now, when you think about your work, specifically focusing on a communication systems audit, like what does that look like? Like, what are you looking for? Channels, decision, right? Like, what are you specifically looking for? And if I'm a leader that wants to take a deeper dive or pull the curtain back and audit my own communication systems, where do I begin?
That's a good question. I think you should start with goals. What are we actually trying to accomplish here? What are we talking about in these different channels? What do we need to be talking about in these different channels? What are people's tones in these different channels? What are people using them for? Are people using emojis or not using emojis? What time are people generally sending messages? Are people acknowledging that the messages were received? Do I have evidence that people actually read them, that kind of thing? It's a huge question, really.
That's good. And transitioning that, I think about a lot of the nonprofits that I talk to, they have like all of these templates and all of these communication ways that they're communicating. They have board updates, they have donor thank yous, they have meeting agendas and crisis communications, role expectations, all of these things. If a smaller team, let's look at those small and mid-sized nonprofit organizations, had to standardize 5 templates to reduce a lot of that chaos, what would you pick?
I would start with, like I said earlier, the communications norms just between teams. You're giving me some hard questions today. The communications norms for sure. Board roles and expectations, clear job descriptions, clear and measurable job descriptions. One thing that always got on my nerves is "and other duties as assigned," because that that takes us back to
as assigned.
And that's no good. And then I don't know. That's 3. That's what I got right now.
Yeah, we'll stick with 3. And I'm super excited to attend, to sponsor, we'll say it publicly,
Thank
the
you.
Nonprofit Culture Fest. Can you tell us more about what people can expect, when it is, and just share the news about the Nonprofit Culture Fest?
Yeah, absolutely. I am absolutely thrilled. Nonprofit Culture Fest is coming to Lawrenceville, right outside Atlanta, on April 10th, 2026. It is a full day of breakout sessions, a very exciting keynote, and a trade show, a little mini trade show of probably 12 to 15 vendors. So our tracks we have 3 tracks. They are Mission Without Martyrdom, Systems That Support People, and Trust, clarity, and communication. So
If I'm listening in right now, Kate, and I'm like, well, why should I come to this event versus any other nonprofit organization event? What makes this event different? What would be your response?
Well, it's the first ever nonprofit conference focused specifically on culture. And when we talk about culture, yes, we're talking about systems, but we're also talking about people. So this is the first people focused nonprofit conference ever. I know there's CultureCon out in LA, I believe, or Las Vegas. That is focused on corporate culture. We are focusing on nonprofit culture where the stakes are very, very high. And the importance of doing good work and keeping good people cannot be overstated.
If you had a microphone that every executive director that ran a nonprofit heard, what would be your message to those EDs out there?
About Culture Fest?
About Culture Fest and about doing this work effectively?
I would say you will be shocked how much your life changes, how much your organization changes when you prioritize culture, because everything flows from it. You think you have a rock star fundraiser, or you have a wealthy few people on the board, or you have frontline staff that are super engaged, and that's fantastic. All those things by themselves are wonderful, but they're not sustainable if if your values are not in place, like if your culture is not healthy.
That's good. Kate, why this work? You could be doing anything. Your expertise, your background, your experience, the results that you've driven for companies and organizations. Why this work, though?
It's so important. I mean, it's just so critically important, I think. I mean, I say often that I was born with a pathological need to serve. I've always felt like that. I'm serious. I mean, 15 years ago when I was sweeping out bunny pens at the Georgia House Rabbit Society, like that fed who I am at my core. I needed to serve something much larger than myself. I've always been that way. And as my career has progressed, that feeling has only expanded. And I felt like, even as a consultant, sure, like I can go to one of the, or all of the 6,000 nonprofits in Atlanta, and I can help them all with their culture, but it's not enough. I feel like I am being sort of pulled toward making a bigger impact. We need that culture revolution in the sector to be as effective as we can as the nonprofit world, like to be meeting the needs that we've got to meet, to be showing up for our stakeholders, to be creating workplaces that people want to be a part of, and ultimately to be creating the kind of world that we want to live in. That is what I want to help create.
Where can people find you, Kate? And how can people invest in the Culture Fest and continue to support you in your initiatives moving forward?
Well, you can find all about Culture Fest at nonprofitculturefest.com. You can read more about non-toxic nonprofits at nontoxicnonprofits.com. And you can reach me at kate@nontoxicnonprofits.com.
Super simple. What's your answer to this last statement? Culture is blank.
Everything. That's kind of a cop-out, I know, but it is everything. Culture is the bedrock of every nonprofit foundation, nonprofit organization. It absolutely is. Everything flows from it. And I really believe that it is the most reliable predictor of success and sustainability.
Kate, this was powerful. And not just powerful, practical. I know I stressed you today, so I appreciate you you indulging with me. And here's what I'm taking away. Culture isn't just this vibe. It's a feeling. It's an infrastructure. And most cultural issues are structural misalignments showing up oftentimes in human behavior. And if we focus on leaders building trust through clarity, through vulnerability, through empathy, through consistency and accountability, then it gives us the opportunity to create a culture that matters, where we feel valued, where we feel seen, where we are showing up at our absolute best. And for everyone listening, I do agree with Kate. Culture is everything. And one of the things that we say here at the Contagious Culture Podcast is that the energy you bring is the culture you create. So if this episode put language to what you've been feeling, I want you to share it with a leader who's trying to scale a mission without breaking their people. Our listeners, keep building culture on purpose. We'll see you next episode in the Contagious Culture Podcast. But before we let you go, what type of culture are you spreading? Culture is everywhere as anything. Make yours worth catching. It's the Contagious Culture Podcast. My name is Kyle King. I'm your host. We'll see you guys next episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Contagious Culture Podcast. If this episode challenged or inspired you, hey, take a second to share it with someone who's building culture in their world. Make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps more leaders, educators, and change makers just like yourself join the movement. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or YouTube at Kyle S. King for more tips, tools, and methodologies to be able to help you create this ecosystem of absolute excellence. Until next time, lead boldly, live intentionally, and remember, your culture is contagious. Make it worth catching.